Official YouTube channel for me, the Colin Cowherd Podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button right there so you don't miss any of our football content this postseason. Going to have instant reactions after every big game. Thanks. All right, instant reaction. 23-14, safety at the end. Kansas City prevails. They will now go to their 7th straight AFC championship game. All right, Kansas City, how about that? 7 straight AFC championship appearances. There was Babe Ruth and Gehrig, Jordan and Pippen, and Mahomes and Kelce. 7 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown. I never thought I'd see anything better than Gronk and Brady, which were better than Winslow and Fouts. But it's pretty remarkable. I'm looking at this. Think about this. Kelce today had the most yards he's had all season, defrosted for the playoffs. He has the most 100 receiving yard games in playoff history, 70-plus receiving yards in 14 straight playoff games. Second longest streak is 7. So I never thought I'd see anything better than Winslow. And Shannon Sharp was damn good. So was Tony Gonzalez. Then there was Brady and Gronk. This is better. And this is just the classic example of these seasons as the NFL keeps extending the season and asking more of their players. The great players know when to pick their spots. And my takeaway on the 23-12 win is so much is done. Like Texan fans are complaining about the refs. The difference is when you go on the road in the playoffs, you always get hosed. Win more regular season games and get home field playoff advantage. The Texans were in a worse division, win more games. I mean, the Chiefs were in a better division. Chargers made the playoffs. Broncos made the playoffs. I mean, in the Texans division, the Jags were at tire fire. Colts were a mess. So, win more games in your division. Tennessee was a mess. So that's the advantage of playing at home. In my entire life, it could be any sport. You'll get a call at home or two. But Andy Reid now was 11-0 when he leads at half. And even though the Texans had a great final drive at the end of the first half and got the kickoff in the second half, the big takeaway for me today in this game was the Texans had no real answer when Spags blitzed. And when the Texans put pressure with an extra man on Mahomes, they seem to always have an answer. And that is the difference. Fans are going to complain about officials, and there were 2 lousy calls against Houston. I'm overly protective of Mahomes. Yes, but this is sort of the NFL now. The calls that drive us nuts are almost always a hit on a quarterback shouldn't be called, and it is. I'm kind of used to about 1 a game. You'd hope with the best officiating crews you wouldn't get any in the playoff games. It may be the opposite because you're dealing with bigger star quarterbacks and they don't want them hurt. So I'm baking that in, even though I thought both calls were weak. I'm just baking that in once a game, twice a game. You're going to see one of the quarterbacks both get that call. You're going to get that call. I don't like it, but I think the big difference is it's easy to complain about officiating, but so much is done in the NFL. Andy Reid with extra time. Shocking he won. Kansas City, I've been calling them the Packers of the AFC. They feel a year away. 6-7 more players, add more depth. Could they have won if they had Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs? Certainly would have helped, although Nico Collins is amazing, and Joe Mixon, I've thought, is one of the more underrated backs in the league in the last 5-6 years. I think when you look at it, Kansas City keeps winning these games, and it's not a coincidence. That's why people always talk about luck. Kansas City is the Patriots. They're just more of an offensive version, and it always felt like New England was more of a defensive version. When New England had their best offense with Randy Moss, they didn't win titles. But I think what's also happening, once you started paying Brady a little more, you're not going to have as dynamic an offense, and once you start paying Mahomes more, the Chiefs' offense isn't dynamic, but it's efficient. Anytime they get an official break or a fumble, or they get just something goes their way, a kicker misses a kick, they tend to go back and punish you. The great quarterbacks punish you for their mistakes. Kansas City doesn't play perfect football, but there's about 5 great quarterbacks in the league, and they don't get punished for them. And that's just the way football works. So, I look at, I'm thinking about this Mahomes-Kelce. So it was funny in the first half. Mahomes had a passer rating of 110 going to Kelce and a passer rating of 61 going to everybody else. It's so classic. And it's very much Brady Gronk. I've got all sorts of notes here. I thought the Texans had a really good game plan early. I love that 15-play drive. But just ask yourself this if you're a Texans fan. If I would have said to you before the game, you're going to play pretty well, but your special teams are going to be awful. Does that sound like you would have beaten the 2-time defending champs and the greatest quarterback arguably of all time? Be totally honest. You're going to go on the road. You're going to play pretty well, but God, our special teams had their worst day of the year. You're not winning that game. You're not winning that game. Those officiating calls, I would buy much more if you didn't miss a PAT, if you didn't get a field goal blocked, if you're not missing kicks, if you didn't give up a huge kickoff return to open the game. So, I understand fan is short for fanatic, and they're going to rail on those 2 calls. But in the end, it's Kansas City doing what Kansas City does. And Andy Reid doesn't lose off a bye, and Andy Reid doesn't lose when he's leading at half. He's now 12-0 when leading at half. Something else I want to give credit for. I thought not only did, Mahomes and Kelce rise to the moment, I thought Joe Buck and Aikman were great today. And I agreed with Aikman, that Dalton Schultz play, I don't know what a catch is either. I thought the minute he secured it, left foot down, right foot out, I agreed with Aikman. But I think what Troy is willing to say, and it's really important because we're all sitting there saying the same thing, is he went after the officials today. And I appreciate that. And I know a lot of announcers are uncomfortable with that. But Aikman, of all the analysts, is willing to take swings on stuff. And I thought the officials missed a couple of early calls. And I agreed with him, and I'm glad he does that because we're all saying the same thing at home. And I think when an analyst can say what we're thinking, that's when you're the most effective. It's one thing to have, you're prepared, but when you can say what I'm thinking, that's a good analyst. So tip of the cap there. I also think as great as the NFL regular season is, and Peyton Manning told me this years ago, he said there's preseason speed, there's regular season speed, there's division rival speed, and then there's playoff speed and intensity. And that thing today, for Kelce to rise from the ashes, it's just so classic Kansas City and classic playoff football. I think Buffalo's a better team. I think Kansas City's a better situational team. And this whole thing about luck. Look at how Kansas City won games this year. They block a kick, like a Denver Broncos kick when they're outplayed. I don't think that's luck. I think it's preparation. I think Spags very early in this game figured out they don't have an answer for our blitzes. And they didn't. And Houston was a crazy, inconsistent team all year anyway. Like I said going into this game, is I couldn't picture a way Houston could win. If they got off to a good start, they didn't. If everything was pretty buttoned up, it wasn't. I could see them, covering the spread, but you can't have a special teams disaster and win at Arrowhead. Not going to happen. Say it out loud. Yeah, we're awful on special teams, and we're facing Mahomes and Reid off a bye. The other thing I think about is I do think this is the best version of Buffalo, and I don't think it's the best version of the Lions. I thought they were better last year because they were healthier. I don't think it's the best version necessarily of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Sirianni this year has been quirky. I thought the Super Bowl year, they had a better staff with Shane Steichen. I don't think it's the best version of Baltimore because Zay Flowers is hurt. I think this is the best version of the Buffalo Bills, and that's why I think they're going to beat Baltimore. But as I look at the AFC in total, I think there's about 5 teams in this league that are a year away. Denver Rams, I believe, Chargers, Houston Texans. I think they're all really, really close. but they just need another draft to catch up to Buffalo, Philadelphia, Detroit talent, and to be able to topple the Kansas City Chiefs. So all year long, I had Kansas City number one in the herd hierarchy. I now have them 2 behind Buffalo, and I think that's what the AFC Championship's going to look like. But, I mean, you're talking Babe Ruth and Gehrig, Pippen and Jordan, Mahomes and Kelce. It's what you tell your grandkids about that didn't see it live. Just amazing. Just to be on the day, 7 of 8, a perfect passer rating, 158.3. Mahomes, to the rest of the team, a passer rating of 61, completed 9 of 17. Old, reliable. When the Chiefs starters playing, that defense hasn't given up over 20 points since Thanksgiving. And Karlaftis has really emerged. And Kansas City's defense 2 years ago was really interesting, good, but young. Last year, they were really good. This year, they're a little older, and they probably won't be able to keep all these guys. But when I watch the Chiefs defense this year, it doesn't quite feel quite as good at corner. But man, their timing on 3rd and 4th down, their understanding of the scheme and the blitz packages, this Kansas City defense, you know, we think Kansas City's offense is good situationally. This Kansas City defense is so good on big downs. They can smell it, they can read it, they can taste it. I just feel like we're watching, and I've said this all year, they're better offensively than last year. I really do. I don't love their offensive tackle situation, but they're better offensively. They're more dynamic. Xavier Worthy helps. They're maybe not quite as deep defensively, but I think they're that year of age and wisdom. Jesus, they're good on big downs defensively.
Not just